Go ahead.
Since deleted it.
Immediately deleted it. Can you imagine the blowback being so firm? Even LeBron James is forced to delete that. After all, he is the judge and the jury all of a sudden because he's hurt and is a really good basketball player. The National Fraternity Order of Police takes action with this statement. LeBron James, with his vast resources and influence, should educate himself and, frankly, has a responsibility to do so on the facts that before weighing in, this is disgraceful and extremely reckless. The officers saved a young girl's life. No amount of gaslighting will change that. He's got like 50 million followers.
50 million followers, and now he's doxed the identity of the law enforcement officer who was in the middle of that really difficult and unfortunate exchange. And he does have a responsibility where he sits with that many followers to take a moment, take a pause, look at the facts, look at the information, and put out information or not put out information. I mean, there's some moments where not saying anything and letting the justice system play out, letting the investigation play out is the most prudent thing to do, especially in a moment where there is so much tension.
Yeah, and
so to say you're next, what does that mean? Does that mean he's equivalent to Derek Chauvin? And what if... Everyone would ask it. You would ask this question. I would ask this question. What if that was my daughter or my son being stabbed?
I was thinking the same
What if it was
thing.
LeBron's? What would he want that law enforcement officer to do?
Well, Jason Whitlock, who is also African-American, he said black teenage girl tries to stab a black teenage girl. 7-year-old black girl gunned down at McDonald's drive-thru. Silence. No tweets. You're not tired of young black people killing each other? Silence. No desperation. How come?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's looking her for friends and family, the communities that are hurting and grieving. We know the police violence disproportionately impacts black and Latino people and communities in that black women and girls, like black men and boys, experience higher rates of police violence. Police violence. The police were called on the scene by the black community, by a young woman, say she was being stabbed. They go out there, they see a black woman about to be stabbed. They show up. It just happens to be a white. How about this? How about if you're somebody, you know, you've just worked 8 hours, you look at the Washington Times or the New York Times, the Washington Post, and you see this story. Know what they left out? And the Daily Beast too?
The knife.
That the woman had the 16-year-old had a knife about to stab another woman. It looks like a white cop showed up and just started shooting people. And they go, yeah, sorry about that. PBS did the same, NPR did the same thing, and they said a little bit later, later it turned out we were wrong not to include the part about the woman who was shot having a knife.
Senator John Kennedy, he said when a cop shoots a criminal, it's always every single time the cop's fault. But when a criminal shoots a cop, it is always every single time the gun's fault.
Right.
Where's the outrage in Chicago? That 7-year-old little girl trying to get, a Happy Meal at McDonald's like all of our kids love. They love the little toy. She's in the drive-thru and she's shot. Where's the outrage there? Where's Al Sharpton? Where are these activists trying to put a stop to what's happening in Chicago? We have so many people, so many Americans dying in that city.
Right. Meanwhile, let's continue with this theme, sadly.
Ainsley Bryan, Pete, Minneapolis here was on edge, waiting for that George Floyd verdict. Then during the trial, 20-year-old Daunte Wright was shot and killed by police in nearby Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Video appears to show Daunte Wright struggling with police during an arrest. Now today, he will be laid to rest here. The Reverend Al Sharpton will give his eulogy. Here is Sharpton talking about Wright's multiracial parents.
They didn't raise their children to hate. They're an interracial family that believed in harmony and love, and you brought hate into their family, and we will run it out.
Family and friends attended Daunte Wright's viewing yesterday, just one day after celebrations in the streets here for Derek Chauvin's guilty verdict, and the same day the Department of Justice.
Police officers across the country actually are good people, good cops, and they need to be freed up from cops who are bad apples and police officers who are seeking to cause harm. And if you have a new set of accountabilities, people's behavior shifts.
The funeral is scheduled to begin at 12 noon local. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Matt. Let's talk about the border right now. Immigration, did you have a comment about that?
No, it's just, you hear that comment about most cops are, and that's true, but how do we know that Kim Potter was a bad apple? How do we know that that guy in Columbus was a bad apple? Or did they just make a really tough call or make the wrong call in a moment?
Right. That seems to be the case if you look at the background of Kim Potter. Has a great background, 26 years on the force. She was actually heading up the union up until 2019, at which time she was actually training somebody else. Obviously, I've talked to a bunch of law enforcement officials. They never got close close to making that mistake before. I'd like to hear her side of the story. Sure. I don't think you can lump her in on the bad side. And the last person that asked for her to have due process got fired. That's so right. You can imagine how intimidated people are out there to speak their minds.
The Columbus Public Safety Director, Ted Pettis Jr., he said the community should not rush to judgment. It's a horrendous tragedy. All of these are horrendous tragedies, but the video shows that there is more to this. It requires us to pause and wait for facts. Ohio State University, now the students are gathering in the Students' Union, and they're demanding that the school cut ties with Columbus police. In Portland, someone punched an officer in the face. They smashed windows of a Starbucks. They spray painted anti-police messages on walls there. Minnesota, protesters were yelling at police, "Get the blank out." And in New York, at that local restaurant, "We don't want you here. We don't want you here."
Good. And they do. You know what? You should be barred from anyone who says that. You are no longer allowed to use 911. Let's just hope in your life you never need a police officer.
All that's going to mean is less cops and more crime.
Yep.
The equation is quite simple. Maybe that's what they want.
All right, let's talk about what's happening at the border. You know, if you listen to Governor Ducey, if you listen to the governor of Texas, you listen to the governor of New Mexico, and not the governor of California, who's too busy gelling his hair and pretending that the virus is overwhelming his state, but while keeping him locked down until the middle of June. But
yes, we'll pay you that money if you get
this is
migrants
unbelievable.
over the border.
I'm sure this is just a scratch of the surface of the types of stuff going on social media. Here's a couple of the posts we have as examples.
Why aren't these posts being taken down?
Good question. Maybe we'll find out today.
Ask China. Don't they run it?
They run LeBron James, too. Here's a couple of the posts. They need 2 or 3 drivers to go through a checkpoint, says one. Another one says, got 15 ready, presumably humans, to go through. Let me know ASAP. Easy cash. Don't sleep. Got another 6 left, already crossed. Let me know ASAP for that easy cash. Chip Roy jumped in on what this all means. Take a listen.
Cartels have operational control of our border, period. Anybody who's following it knows that. Tamaulipas, the state right across the border from Texas, is run by the dangerous cartels, the Reynosa faction of the Gulf Cartel and the Cartel del Noreste of Los Zetas. They are using human beings as shields for profit. They're moving people into Texas, into our communities, into San Antonio, which I represent. We've stopped vehicles with human beings that are being sent to stash houses in Houston to be used for profit into human trafficking and sex trafficking. We're allowing this to occur, and Democrats refuse to do anything about it. Kamala Harris has been, quote, on the job for a month. Literally, she has done nothing. She's not gone to the border. She's done nothing to address this.
What does it say about her character that she gets this portfolio, this big challenge, and she punts? She punts, and nobody is calling her out on it. I watched ABC do a story today. They addressed a very similar thing without the TikTok portion. They talked about the chaos at the border, and they talked about a little boy, the 2 little boys who were found on the edge of the Rio Grande River, and they were just stuck behind trees, dropped off there. And they say the vice president will be touring Guatemala in June. You're missing the point. If that was Donald Trump, even though this has been a crisis from the day he took over, from policies that he reversed on pure political retribution, they still will not go until June. That's the way you do that story. She is not to know it. They feel as though if they ignore it, it'll go away. This is the only thing that Joe Biden's getting under 50% approval for. It's at 42%. I don't know who the 42% who approve of his border policies.
Well, yeah, a lot of people aren't happy with what's happening, ending the construction of the wall, catch and release, and remain in Mexico, all those changes. Sheriffs are sitting down with Will Kane down on the border, who's our weekend.
Let's go to extreme weather now and take a look at this terrifying dash cam video showing a semi-truck losing control and slamming into a snowplow during whiteout conditions in Wisconsin, causing a 22-car pileup, leaving 1 person dead and several others hurt. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, a rare April shower in New York City. Hail slamming parts of the city as storms moved across the Big Apple. I'm sure one of you was wondering as if they ended up getting married somehow, somewhere.
Well, they're not starting out on the right foot.
No.
We will make up a lie. We'll tell everyone. Is that what happened? They said this is our house?
Must have been like a vacation house. It's been empty. They think, okay, we'll get in before they come back, and then oops.
The invitation said it was theirs, so.
I had no idea the IHOPs were that profitable. Don't you think it should be a big triangle building with a magenta roof? That would be fantastic.
Even free pancakes.
Magenta roof. Aren't their roofs blue?
Wow. Yeah, you're right. It's blue. The hard thing is, if an IHOP goes out of business, there's no store to actually take over the shape of that building that makes sense. So they usually have to wreck the building and just start again.
It's like pizza.
Right.
It's true. Remember they tried to be IHOB too? They tried to be
Yes.
Right. We fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Everyone fell for it.
Thank you, Julie.
They have some good pancakes. Those Harvest Grain, they're so good.
Right.
Thank you, Julie.
But we work during breakfast. We can't get them.
All right, coming up, President Biden said that he would. President Biden warning 4th of July celebrations could be canceled because a large number of American adults have not been vaccinated.
All right, David Spunt joins us live from Washington. David, you might as well work during the 4th of July if we can't have that cookout and drive there in our station wagon. Could you tell me what the truth is?
Yeah, listen, it has been a long, difficult 12 months for so many people in this country. They look forward to the 4th of July. President Biden last month at the White House said that his goal was to maybe start to get things back to normal if we follow the COVID guidance by 4th of July. Here's what he said last month. Listen.
If we do all this, if we do our part, if we do this together, by July the 4th, there's a good chance your families and friends will be able to get together.
Yesterday at the White House at an event celebrating 200 million COVID vaccine shots administered, the president, hopeful of July 4th, said that there's much more work to be done in the next 2 months to reach that goal. Here he is yesterday.
The broad swath of American adults still remain largely unvaccinated. To celebrate our independence from this virus on July 4th, we still have more to do in the months of May and June till everyone has a chance to get their shot.
Okay, guys, here are the latest stats from the CDC. 215 million people have at least received one shot. 51.5% of U.S. adults have at least one dose. That's the CDC as of yesterday. President Biden and Vice President Harris yesterday calling on businesses, from small businesses to large corporations, to allow people to leave work to get those COVID-19 vaccines and still get paid, I should say. And as of Monday, just a few days ago, anyone in the United States over 16 years old is eligible to get that vaccine. Guys.
David Spunt, thank you so much. So I guess if you follow the rules, you too can have a barbecue driven by a station wagon.
Well, it's even the Atlantic. Even the Atlantic is now saying...
People are fed up.
Yeah, they are.
My
This is the title of this article. Are outdoor mask mandates still necessary?
No.
And they go on to say, I feel like I'm watching people put on their seatbelts in parked cars, talking about when you walk up to the restaurant, you can take your mask off at the table. I feel like I'm watching people put on seatbelts in parked cars and then unbuckle them as they put the vehicle in drive. The writer says in D.C. there's an outdoor mandatory mask. And then inside for restaurants, there's limited indoor seating. So this writer is saying masks outside, but bare faces in bar seats. Basically, what's the point of wearing a mask when we're outside?
Zero. Go ahead, Pete. You're at the...
No, I mean, welcome to the party, to the Atlantic and the New Republic and the New York Times. Just now recognizing the absolute absurdity of walking around outside with a mask or a double mask on. You know why? Because it's politically okay now to signal that. Joe Biden's 100-day mask challenge is almost over. He's in office. So now it's okay to question what has always been absurd, which many of us have been questioning from the beginning. Now it's safe to do so. Well, thanks.
By the way, we're doing it anyway. We were doing it even before your ridiculous remarks in March. And I think the president is doing the worst thing, along with Anthony Fauci, now wearing 2 masks after being double vaccinated. He's wearing a mask walking through a graveyard at Arlington. He is wearing a mask even though his vice president's 12 feet away and off his right shoulder. It is the exact inverse of what you want people to go get vaccinated. Show them their life is going to change. And the CDC came out 2 weeks ago and said, if you've been vaccinated, you can't carry the virus. Quickly had to walk it back while not denying it because it's not politically correct to say the truth. Bottom line is, don't expect people to run to get vaccinated who are on the fence if you tell them nothing in their lives will change.
Well, the New Republic writes, set us free from outdoor mask mandates. And even the New York Times is talking about irrational COVID fears.
Yeah. Good idea. How about you just stop wearing your mask outside?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Atlantic writer.
Right
New
now.
York Times writer. Right now.
All right.
Take it off.
Absolutely. 26 minutes now after the hour. Well, if I'm being accurate, it's actually 27. Woke culture has officially find a way for parents and students across the country to escape woke indoctrination. Go to the source. Daniel Buck writes this: most teachers at least claim to be moderate. The institutions that train them are not. If we only focus our attention on a few outlandish lesson plans or individual districts, we're going to spend our time scooping out of floodwater while the faucet remains running. Daniel Buck is a 6th grade teacher from Wisconsin, joins us now. Daniel, not only do you identify the problem, but you have a solution. First off, how would you characterize the problem? Where do the teachers go wrong?
Well, like I said in the piece, it's a problem of the water damage in the faucet. We see these stories in the news about, ethnomathematics in our classroom, which de-emphasizes the need to find a right answer. And I see all of this pressure being put on the public schools, but we're ignoring the universities that are teaching our teachers into activist pedagogy, which wants to make their kids, as the name implies, into activists. So we can look at the schools all we want, but the theory, the lesson plans, the union leaders, all of these things are coming out of the university. And unless we address the progressivism in the university, we're going to completely miss out on actually fixing the problem in the classroom.
So for most public schools, you have to go get that education degree and then work towards your master's or have your master's before you even get hired. What do you think should be the new criteria to solve this problem?
I think we just need to de-center kind of the university monopoly on this in general. Somebody who's owned a business for years and years and years and years and years might make a great teacher in business for a high school class, a high school elective, even if they don't have their fancy 4-year degree with the 2-year master's program. So we could...
like they do in college. In college, you don't have to be a teacher, but yet you're paying $70,000 in some cases to get a professional from that discipline, whether it's sociology or this business. So you're saying do the same thing for public schools.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other organizations that are doing great work too, like Research Ed. I've learned more and better teaching from a lot of books that I've read, or these organizations like Research Ed, and they taught me the proper way to teach, not ideology, but the nuts and bolts. How do you teach kids vocab and open up books for them and control your class way better than any university ever did?
So do other people feel like you?
Yes, lots of teachers do. We sit in these trainings and we get a lot of this ideology coming at us. And afterwards, a lot of the teachers say, I care about things like racial justice, but this activism, this progressivism isn't really what I buy into. Even if they identify as liberals, they still have some pretty conservative values, thinking that families are important, that personal responsibility are important, these kinds of things, regardless of whatever they identify as.
Right. And just real quick exit question, Daniel. You're out here, you're saying things are totally logical. Why aren't others speaking out? Are they afraid?
Yeah, there's just so much public pressure. There's fear from social media. People lose jobs for saying these kinds of things. So I get DMs and messages and emails from teachers every couple of weeks saying hey, thank you for speaking out, but I can't say this kind of thing because of my boss, because of the social pressure going on right now.
Yeah, the Paul Rossi's in Manhattan, the teacher, the parent that we had from Greenwich, the investment banker who spoke out about what's happening with his daughter, and then people like you, Daniel Buck, talking about what's going on with our primary schools with a great solution as well. Good job, Daniel. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, up next on our show, Pete's idol, Will Cain, gets a firsthand look at the migrant crisis and talks to sheriffs at the border about what needs to be done to fix it.
It starts with the President of the United States. He needs to prioritize this border, all our borders, and there's consequences for breaking up.
Now from Texas, I just can't believe he went to the border without me. Will, good morning. How you doing?
I'm good, Pete. Sorry to have left you up north while I went south to the border. But it was important because now I've been to the border 2 times. That's 2 more times than the Vice President of the United States. And here's why it's so important. Because I got to see on the ground, as you'll see, literally on the ground, the effects of drug smuggling and illegal immigration on this country. And I spoke to, as you mentioned, a panel of sheriffs from all over about the quality of life issues this imposes upon their communities and what they are determined to do about it. Watch. Looking at this group of sheriffs from New Mexico, from Maryland, Virginia, from Nevada, and all the way from Massachusetts.
We brought this group together because we as sheriffs, the people expect us to do something.
In the year 2020, New Mexico seized about 18,000 fentanyl pills. Year to date this year, we've seized over 90,000 pills.
We have experienced an all-time high of overdoses in Wycomico County, Maryland.
Between 2007 and 2017, Massachusetts had the highest influx of illegal immigrants into our communities in Massachusetts.
It's often been said every county is a border county. Start with Virginia having arrests of cartel members, MS-13 gang members.
I was with Sheriff Daniels last night. We're sitting here in Cochise County, and this is Sheriff Daniels County, and he told me the numbers have increased tenfold from over a year ago. You're all nodding along. You've all experienced something similar?
The Cochise County Sheriff's Office has a virtual system camera system.
That's an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
As we sit here, there's a group not far from us, about 13, coming right on our backside that we're working on right now.
That you've already caught on camera. You can see them making their way through the mountains as we talk.
Yeah, we saw them come in the country illegally, and now our team and Border Patrol are working to get them right now. This is a very active highway. It wasn't that way before, but it's become before the administration canceled all the prevention programs, checkpoints.
Sheriff, tell me what we just saw.
You saw cartel smuggling.
What can be done to solve this problem?
It starts with the President of the United States. He needs to prioritize his border, all our borders, and there's consequences for breaking our laws.
There is a rule of law in this country. We are a country of immigrants. We all welcome immigration. We all do. We've all been beneficiaries of immigrants in our community, but legal immigrants.
My parents did it right. We came here legally, but we need to fix the border crisis that we have.
Because we're the county sheriff. When the feds fail, when the states fail, we're not going to fail our citizens because we're in church with them. We're at the supermarket with them. We live right next door to them. The people in D.C. or the capitals of our state don't care. We have to.
You know, Pete, Brian, Ainsley, here's what's fascinating. If you're sitting at your home somewhere in suburbia America and all you ever read about this issue is on Twitter, or maybe you're in Washington, D.C., and all you read is data, you can maybe wave your hand at this like it's a race issue or it's a partisan issue. But when you talk to people who this is literally happening in their backyard, you see it's a quality of life issue. They talk about the drug overdoses, and they talk repeatedly about the rule of law. Imagine living in a place where the law just didn't seem to apply. No one cares, no one obeys, criminal laws, traffic laws, whatever it may be. These sheriffs from across the country are saying, right, and that's why these sheriffs, Brian, have created Protect America Now, because they know they can do something about it, and they say if the federal government will not, then they will step up to enforce these laws.
Well, and those sheriffs love this country. You heard the last man say, this is a land of opportunity. We're not against immigration. We just are trying to keep people safe.
What a great group. Great package, Will. ProtectAmericaNow.com. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon.
Talk to Will again later.
All right, and let's talk to Janice right now. Hey, Janice.
Hi, taking a look at how cold it is. I mean, we've broken many low records across the country. 2/3 of the country below freezing right now. It's a second winter for places like Colorado. So let's take a look at it. Freeze advisories as far south as Birmingham, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky. This will be the last day for this round of wintry weather as we get into the weekend. The cold front has swept offshore. We actually had severe storms yesterday across the Northeast. We still have the potential for lake effect snow for the next 12 to 24 hours. And then we get into the severe weather across the south and the southeast. We've got this area of low pressure that's going to develop on Friday and move its way eastward across portions of the southeast. So the severe threat, large hail, damaging winds and tornadoes. And actually, April has been fairly quiet when it comes to tornadoes. March was, we had more than average. And so we'll start to ramp up again as we get into the weekend. So just keep that in mind. Know what to do if there's a watch or a warning in your area. All right, Pete, Ainsley, Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Janice. Appreciate it. All right, well, our next guest traded in his NFL jersey.